So after a 7-year hiatus, Star Wars has returned to the big screen with the Mandalorian and Grogu feature film. And somehow, even with this long span of time in between movies, this feels like something I should be watching on Disney+. Now let me be perfectly clear. I personally was able to find some enjoyment in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but the more I thought about it after seeing the movie, the more frustrated I felt. Because yes, for people who enjoy these characters and enjoy this universe, there is enjoyment to find here. But this also reveals the biggest problem that the Star Wars franchise is facing today, which isn't the fact that the movie is bad. It's that after 7 years of not having a Star Wars movie on the big screen, we're essentially met with a season of The Mandalorian chopped up into a feature film. And to me, that just tells me that Disney doesn't know what to do with this franchise, and ever since they bought it from Lucasfilms, it has been a slow decline in quality. And at this point, I don't know if Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni have it in them to save this franchise. But before we jump into the negative, I want to talk about the few positives I liked about this movie. Obviously, the relationship between Grogu and Mando is the strongest part in the series and the strongest part in this movie. Obviously, that father-son dynamic is the heart and soul of this film, and it's a trope that has been seen across the board in a lot of content recently, but it continuously works. And I will say that beginning scene with Mando and just him taking out a bunch of stormtroopers, what a great way to start off the movie and to show how much he's grown as a bounty hunter. Like, yes, he's always been a threat, and in season 1, episode 1 of The Mandalorian, you do see him have some experience, but we've never seen him be this calculated against these many enemies at once. Like, season 1 Mando wouldn't have been able to hold up in this beginning fight in this movie. So it's really cool to see that his skill set has grown throughout the series and throughout this movie. And the simplicity of this movie is very nice. You know, they don't try to do anything too crazy, so it is easy to kind of jump right into it. But I have to say, this is probably the safest approach I've ever seen in a Star Wars film. Like, say what you want about Acolyte, but at least it made an attempt to do something new and to do something risky. And granted, we know how that works out, but at least they took a shot. Where on this, we have a story that honestly could have been not even a full season of The Mandalorian, but half a season. And I shouldn't be walking out of a Star Wars movie feeling like that. Like, I remember watching Force Awakens after the long stretch that we hadn't seen Star Wars on the big screen, and hearing that ensemble and seeing the scroll, everybody was losing their minds. And after the 7-year gap, they had a chance to do that again. And if you didn't know, they actually chose to make this into a film after the 2023 writer's strike. And although Jon Favreau has said this is its separate project and this was never meant to be a season 4, the writing of it is very similar to how a season of The Mandalorian is structured. And it has that rhythm of a TV show. I was literally sitting there with my wife, and there was multiple times I leaned over and said, "End of episode 1." Because you could tell that the DNA of the TV show is still lingering in this movie. And I want to break that down because it's a very specific feeling. Because a majority of this film revolves around the twins who are related to Jabba the Hutt. And the twins are hiring the Mandalorian to track down Rod the Hutt, which is Jabba's son. And then once that moment happens, we're then on a side quest hunt where he goes to 10 different spots to gain the smallest amount of information. And although I know The Mandalorian is supposed to simulate those old Western movies, and that's how they were structured back in the day, where you would have your hero go through multiple different people to find their so-called villain. And I think this could have been a strong premise to the beginning of the film and then have the stakes just slowly grow while Mando's trying to find out more information. He's going down more holes, getting introduced to higher stakes. But no, it's just talk to this person, leave. Talk to this person, leave. Bribe this person, threaten this person. All to be thrown into this stupid scenario where now he's fighting in the ring with Rod of the Hutt, while Grogu is locked in a small cage, forgetting that he has the ability of the Force and could easily break out. And that happens in multiple scenes where characters who have certain abilities are nerfed so that the plot can move forward. And this is where the movie exposes the bigger problem that Disney has had with this franchise. For years, Disney has been trading audiences to view Star Wars as content and not an experience. And as someone who obviously loves the MCU, they are trying to make this too much of a cinematic universe. Because what made the Star Wars movie special before is that it was secluded to the trilogies. You didn't need to see shows or one-shots or movies to understand what was going on. And at the beginning, Disney did a good job of separating the stories that they were telling outside of the trilogy to be standalone movies, with Rogue One and Andor being a great example of this. And I think that's okay, building out these characters and stories that we want to hear more of without it impacting the main trilogy or the story they're showing in theaters. But doing the MCU style of things where it's teasing and team-ups and all this, it's just not Star Wars. And that's the problem, is Star Wars doesn't need to be a cameo fest. All it needs to be is a universe with interesting characters and interesting stories. And each story having a different style and different tone compared to the other ones. And what Disney needs to stop doing is making Star Wars feel like content and make it feel like an experience again. And not just a machine to push out new merchandise and toys that they can capitalize on. I know you're wondering, why does it matter? Why is so much weight being put on the Mandalorian Grogu? I mean, this should just be a one-off. And really, it's because Star Wars has been so absent from the theater experience for so long, and this was the return. It should have felt bigger than this. And with Star Wars, you shouldn't have to have 3 seasons of knowledge behind you to be able to go and enjoy a feature film on screen. And that was the biggest mistake, is thinking that the Mandalorian Grogu was a great starting point off for their new direction that they're going with this franchise. And although Grogu and Mando are some of my favorite characters, they're not the characters to hold the Star Wars fandom on their shoulders. And the fact that we also end the movie off exactly how we started it just shows that this really didn't need to happen. Like, us as fans didn't gain anything, and we're left questioning, what is the direction that we're going with Star Wars? Are they gonna reboot it like they say in Ahsoka Season 2? Which, please, I hope they do. And I know we have the Ryan Gosling Star Wars movie coming out soon, and I hope it's like Andor or like Rogue One, where it's a great standalone movie. But Disney needs to figure it out. Because just like we saw with Zack Snyder's Justice League, no matter how powerful your characters are in the franchises, the fandom will get tired of it. And then it's going to be an uphill battle to get everybody back on board. But again, at the end of the day, I liked the movie. I do want to be clear about that. And I want to see more Mando and Grogu, but keep them on Disney+. They work there, you can tell more intimate stories there, and you're not gonna burn goodwill with the fandom. And I want to see the next Star Wars movie that hits screen have that opening crawl and that impact that it should have. So please, Disney, get Jon Favreau, get Dave Filoni, and figure out what the next step is. Because us as fans, we are eager to see this universe grow. But also, don't strip it of what makes Star Wars special. But I want to know, you guys, if you saw The Mandalorian and Grogu, what was your thoughts? Did you enjoy it? Do you think this is a good step for Star Wars movies going forward? Or were you underwhelmed and you're kind of questioning what's next? Let me know in the comments below. But also, if you enjoyed this video and analysis, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future content. In my last video, we did a deep dive of The Boys Season 5 finale. So if you want to watch that, click on this video right here. But that is going to be it for me, you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.